For years, Uganda has won global acclaim for her progressive refugee policy that welcomes all and sundry fleeing from all forms of persecution. This illustrious hospitality goes 85 years ago during the Second World War, when the British colonial administration offered haven to about 4,000 Polish nationals and Jews who had been earmarked for death by Nazis across Europe. These, after the war in 1945, were repatriated. Along came Rwandans fleeing the political heat that culminated into the 1959 bloodbath following independence from Belgium and general elections won by the Party for the Emancipation of the Hutu that brought to an end the Tutsi minority-rule dominion. Today, according to UNHCR and the Office of the Prime Minister, the refugee population stands at 1.7 million people, but is expected to hit 2 million by December 2024, making the country the largest refugee hosting country in Africa and in 5th place globally. Majority of the refugees, or 57%, are from South Sudan, 32% from the Democratic Republic of Congo, 3% from Somalia, and 3% from Eritrea, Rwanda, and Sudan. Generally, 92% of refugees live in the 30 settlements spread across the country, while 8%, or 136,887 people, live in Kampala, integrating and living with the local population. There is also a trend of refugees not wanting to return home.
I think it is an interesting scenario that, and it speaks volumes to what we don't appreciate. The peace that we enjoy in this country is something you cannot take for granted.
The definition of refugees in international law and conventions is clearly defined, but increasingly getting muddled with economic migrants, triggering extreme nationalism and jingoism in both developed and poor countries. In most countries, the parameters are defined for nationals, residents, refugees, asylum seekers, and illegal migrants. In Uganda, the lines appear blurred. Recent years have seen a bulge in the number of urban refugee settlements as policies allow them as long as they can support themselves. The Refugee Act of 2006 and the regulations of 2010 allow refugees who can support themselves or their livelihoods to settle in urban areas and live alongside the community just like Ugandans. While majority are in designated camps across the country, many keep seeping through to the capital. A stroll through select suburbs, Kabalagala, Kansanga, Lubaga, and Zambia may leave one wondering if they have crossed into the Horn of Africa. It is a similar sight in Chisenyi, where thousands of Somali refugees and asylum seekers have patched. The areas they settle in bear key marks of their cultures, including signposts on shops in their native languages and developments like houses of worship. These have also altered the living conditions, leading developments in businesses, real estate, the hospitality industry, and infrastructure, as well as reimagining towns to mirror their cultural and social ways of life. Tulu Abdu fled what he calls insecurity in his home country 4 years ago.
Even security is okay. Even if you move at night, if you go another place, it's not good. This place is very nice. Up to 4 years. Very nice.
Likewise, Saba Tesfaze Hailef, previously settled in Sudan, fled to Kampala following the fallout between the warring Sudanese generals. The ongoing conflict in Sudan has resulted in 12,900 new arrivals since January 2023. Of these, 86% are in Kampala and 14% are in the settlements.
There's a war in Khartoum, that's why we came here through Juba. So we are here asylum seeker, We're in Kampala. The government has given us asylum paper, but not yet the ID, the full status, and we are okay.
Her daughter is adjusting to the life here, having resumed school in one of the schools around the area.
Uganda is good. It's like a second country to us, really. The people are so peaceful. We don't have any problem with the people. But life is really hard. I mean, especially house rent, kind of thing. Life in general, it's not like before, as they say. I have a business, just, you know, some family member, they can help sometimes, you know. We have left everything behind us because of the war. So we don't have nothing here. Only God will survive, you know.
Khalif Muhammad, the acting chairperson of the Somalis, said that there are over 64,000 Somali nationals resident in Kampala, a number higher than official records by UNHCR and the Office of the Prime Minister. Here, Mr. Khalif says peace and can freely engage in development activities.
Increasing, they are coming. Even now I'm talking to you right now, there's a chain people from Somalia coming this side, on the way, coming. Because Uganda, they are good people, they are good government, and they become last 5 years the best government in the world who hosted refugees. And they got award.
He revealed how they are contributing enormously to the economy.
Before 25 years here, if you know, maybe you were young at that time, you can't come this side. Very, very rare here. So we are the one we settled. Now you can see left is a police post, right is a police post. We are we are building malls, shops. That's why we built now. Now you see the city now. Already in town now they are coming this side. So
the Somalis also think it's high time they were considered part of Uganda.
Somalia, they came this country 18th century. So and still we are called refugee, and unfortunately that's that's unfair, you know. So now we are prepared to petition to send to the parliament to become one of the tribes in the Uganda. As long as we are East Africa, as long as we are African, as long as we are in Egypt, so you have to become citizens.
The development has been welcomed by locals, but not without concerns that point to delicate coexistence. In some urban areas in Kampala, the settlement of the refugees has meant outward migration of locals.
Currently, the highest number of residents here are Eritrean and Ethiopian nationals. They are peaceful, respectful and calm. They have transformed the area and come with a heavier pocket than our Ugandans. They always have the money, and so the houses we used to rent out at 150,000 shillings now cost between 400,000 shillings and 500,000 shillings. They pay promptly, but definitely this has disadvantaged the locals who are obviously disgruntled. Most of the Ugandans have now left for the village because they cannot afford the rent.
We have multiple nationalities in our village, but the majority are from Eritrea. They have changed the face of the area. They have even put up their Orthodox church. The place has been transformed. They are clean and even tarmacked the access road leading to the church. They are involved in different businesses. For example, they get leases on whole buildings and then sublet. This has helped landlords to get money in a lump sum.
The surge in the number of urban refugees is increasingly eliciting grievances among the local people who feel either disadvantaged or sidelined. The locals say the refugees are engaging in lowly economic activities, segregating themselves, and in some cases have led to increase in prices of everything.
Uganda is a hospitable country. We welcome everyone seeking refuge, but we thought perhaps we would benefit from them settling our village. That has turned out to be the opposite. They are engaged in every other businesses, even those you would think should be for Ugandans. They sell tomatoes, onions, and even charcoal. We used to rent houses at shillings 150,000, but that is difficult now. If an Eritrean nation wants a house, they will offer to pay shillings 400,000, and certainly the landlord will evict you.
Relationship is not bad with these foreigners or urban refugees. It is very good, but the only problem is they only support themselves. Yeah, they no longer come to our shop. I love coffee. They call it buna. I love their food, injera. Actually enjoy it. Yeah, but you will never see them in our restaurants. Okay, but I go to theirs to show them support, but they don't support us.
The locals want the government to set regulations establishing parameters between foreigners and nationals who are increasingly feeling taken advantage of. The State Minister for Refugees and Disaster Preparedness, Liliana Bear, said Uganda's open-door refugee policy is good for the country.
The open-door policy is a good policy, and in fact is a policy that is being admired and celebrated across the entire world, because it's a policy that has really proven to be very effective.
She said government tries to manage the concerns of host communities across the country.
So we have always tried to handle the host community, conflict that comes up. And this is why we are saying the Dr. Deep approach of the projects, implementation of the projects, that really looks at also the refugees benefiting from these services that we are giving refugees is really very good. We also have a scenario where the urban refugees are also there, and they are doing all kind of businesses, but that is the kind of policy that we have. We have no problem with it. Uganda is, this is being Pan-Africanist, being humanitarian. We have no problem with that. All we want is that we should be able to implement projects that addresses the livelihood of these refugees. The healthcare system should be supported, and also the issue of transition should be addressed. So we need to engage as more also local, NGOs, and that's why we talk about the localization as being very paramount as we look at the implementation. If a refugee has got a stall selling tomatoes, what is stopping the local from having a stall to sell tomatoes? I think that is petty, looking at the open door policy that we have given, to the world. We shouldn't, these are human beings. Uganda is known for hospitality, addressed under the coexistence strategy. Maybe we should say, if we have quite a number of refugees within a certain area, what are some of those constructive projects that we can implement alongside the host communities?
Conversely, the Office of the Prime Minister spokesperson, Charles Odongtho, said refugee rights are protected by the law.
Uganda, in principle, runs what we call the best refugee policy, and that is embedded in the law, in the Refugee Act of 2006. And specifically, if you look at section 29 and 30, they provide for free movement of refugees. It provides for non-discrimination of refugees on grounds of race, sex, gender, and all that. It also provides for, it allows them to move freely across the country. And just like Ugandans, you understand. Now, it talks about Uganda. Every refugee is entitled to a free and fair treatment. Now, those are the same kinds of principles of freedom that any Ugandan has, even in the Constitution.
He urged Ugandans to continue being accommodative.
The rationale that led to making that law was based on, and President Museveni was very categorical on that rationale, that look, we are taking care of our brothers and sisters who are Africans like us. First of all, there was one time that Ugandans were in exile. Millions of Ugandans were in exile. And other people on the continent especially took care of Ugandans. Across the world, they took care of Ugandans. Did they discriminate us? They took care of us until we got stability, we got peace, and we came back. Now, the argument of the president and the parliament that made the law is that we are taking care of our brothers.
Urban refugees, in this case in parts of Kampala, forfeit access to regular humanitarian services offered in camps and have to fend for themselves. This as city suburbs are registering compact settlements of refugees and asylum seekers. To foster coexistence between local communities and refugees in settlement camps, the Office of the Prime Minister adopted the Development Response to Displacement Impact Project, supported by the World Bank, which involves rehabilitation and construction of health centers and schools, among other amenities. notwithstanding and against the backdrop of the jaw-dropping poverty levels and near to non-existent basic services in the refugee hosting districts of Lamour, Moyo, Adjumani, Yumbe and Maracha, among others, sentiments are rife that the aliens are well taken care of than the nationals. Multiple government sources said that the refugee policy is tailored at the highest level to fit into the prism of Pan-Africanism agenda. However, the resultant chaos, swelling numbers, leave a lot to be desired. In some quarters, critics argue that the Kampala regime uses the benevolent refugee policy as a bargaining chip with the West, particularly the United States and the European Union. This the government denies.
Do we move around the world to tell South Sudanese that all Sudanese in Khartoum or Congolese, across the borders that run to Uganda? I think they enjoy a certain level of uniformity with us. If you look around.
In a mini-survey conducted by NTV, a number of refugees in Kampala were without any identification documents.
They are asylum seekers without documents, and this is an appeal to the Directorate of Immigration to step up and ensure they monitor and know who enters the country, because they are responsible for manning the country's borders.
Everyone who comes to reside in our village must be registered. We ask them to present their asylum letter from the government before it expires to ensure they are not here illegally. We also take 2 passport-size photos, one for the village file and another for the residence card. But the problem is with the landlords, who don't report those who settle in their houses without documents.
In March 2023, the government suspended registration for new arrivals in response to a sudden influx of Somali asylum seekers suspected to be Kenyan nationals based on documentation presented at the border. This has left many without documents and hence unable to live freely or access much-needed services like processing work permits, health services, renting houses, among others. This has exacerbated the discriminatory treatment they say they face.
People are around still waiting for registration because the registration was closed before 16 months, So now they are going to start because there are new management. The people who are staying that 1 year and 6 months, they are in challenge in terms of the rent of houses. If you don't have papers, nobody can hire. They can't start business. It's difficult to get the SIM cards registration for the Airtel or MTN or Laika. So they have a lot of challenges.
Notwithstanding the government is exploiting the refugee crisis in the Great Lakes region or not, multiple sources indicated that the multi-sectoral response for refugees is upset that the international community have condensed funding to refugee response while Uganda has continued to flang open its borders for all. Funding for the refugee response decreased from $497 million, about 1.8 trillion Uganda shillings in 2018, to $143 million, about 528 billion shillings in 2024. Sources indicated that some Western donor countries and financial institutions are increasingly slamming the door on government, which was aggravated by the passing of the Anti-Homosexuality Act in 2023. Over the years, the government's human rights record and institutionalized corruption have become disablers overall. In June 2017, the government convened the Refugee Summit to raise $2 billion or 7.3 trillion Uganda shillings, but brought in pledges of a paltry $358.6 million or 1.3 trillion Uganda shillings.
So our disappointment is that as numbers keep on increasing every day, now we are on 1.7 million refugees. The resources that are directed towards our doors are open, and we are committed to our pledge to supporting refugees. And of course, we really do note that hosting refugees in Uganda really contributes into addressing a number of challenges. For example, if Uganda closes her doors to hosting refugees and say, the fundings are dwindling, we are not able to go beyond this, what will happen? These refugees will go, maneuvering through the Indian Ocean, and the pressure will pour to the outside world, definitely.
Refugee concern is a concern for the international community. And so the international community must help Uganda.
NTV has learned that during the Global Refugee Forum in Geneva recently, Uganda made commitments to increase resilience and self-reliance by creating about 300,000 viable economic opportunities for refugees and host communities by 2027, and give refugees a chance to contribute to the economy, as well as offer opportunities for refugees to access conventional electronic travel documents and birth certificates by 2027. In many refugee hosting districts, locals bemoan nearly being reduced to second-class citizens on account of broken services from health to education to roads to the jaw-dropping poverty levels. And while the country's treatment of refugees deserves acclamation, the million-dollar question is, in whose benefit is it?